What's good, world? It's your man Stephen. Welcome to the video. This is video 5 out of 5 out of our No More Mr. Nice Guy series. Maybe might do some follow-up videos on the topic. We'll see how the game goes. We'll see how all this plays out. I like talking about this stuff. And people have shared some stuff with me, and they seem to be getting a lot of value from it, and it seems to be changing, helping them make some transformation. So let's keep chatting it up. In today's video, and make sure that if you like this stuff, you leave a like, a heart. If this blows your mind, leave a wow face. If this triggers you a little bit, you can leave an angry face. All right, and share this content. If you're a guy who struggles with nice guy syndrome, or you know a guy who does, all right, or if you're a woman who knows nice guys or you feel like could help get some value from these videos, make sure you share this with them. May help, probably will. Because once again, we're doing a series over the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, written by Dr. Robert Glover. And this is one of the top, most influential books in my life. Changed my life. I have friends who struggle with nice guy syndrome and have issues with dishonesty, had issues being real, okay? Had issues dealing with conflict and handling conflict. And this book helped me deal with a lot of that. My issues with masculinity, daddy issues, we're going to dive into it today. It's going to be a big, important video. I'm really excited to talk about this. But this book helped me overcome this stuff and solve them issues and become more aware of what it means to be a man and how I can help my other brothers struggling with nice guy syndrome. And how I can be a man and provide value to my community as well. We'll get into that in a minute. So we're going to talk about that. Nice guys, masculinity, and daddy issues. Because, and once again, shout out to Dr. Robert Glover. Let's dive right into it now. Let's get started on the content. Because the main symptoms of a nice guy, okay? Two really common symptoms of a nice guy. Nice guys often struggle with their masculinity and feel detached from their masculinity. And a lot of nice guys have weird, distant relationships with their fathers, okay? And I'm going to explain what I'm talking about. A common thing you hear from nice guys is this. And I remember I used to say this, especially once I started getting into late high school, college. A lot of nice guys will say this. I don't relate well with dudes. I don't get along with men. Most men are jerks. All men want to do is fight and talk about locker room talk. I don't relate very well with men. I don't vibe with them. A lot of nice guys have an issue. I want to hang out with the dudes, but I just don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to talk about. Okay, so you'll hear them say, most dudes are jerks. I don't know how to relate to them. I don't know what to talk about. So really, I vibe and I relate well more with women. It's just easier for me to get along with them. I remember those. I remember specifically saying almost all of those phrases. I remember the days. College. I don't vibe well with the dudes, man. And the only a nice guy is hanging out with men, it's usually other nice guys who commonly say the same thing. Men are just toxic. Okay? So here's a common result. All right? A common result because nice guys are detached from masculinity. And we'll get into why and how that detachment came about. And because they think most guys are jerks and they have a hard time relating to them, what happens is nice guys become really nice. Say hi, John. John doesn't want to say hi. So, nice guys. So they're like, okay, men are jerks. They're violent. They're aggressive. So let me be the nice guy. Let me separate myself from these other men by being really nice. By over caring for people, by doing everything. Let me not bring any conflict into my life. Let me avoid all the conflict. Let me just be really nice, and that'll get people to like me. But here's a really common result from that. Okay, nice guys actually, what they try to do is become the exact opposite of what it means to be a man. And what they do is they become super nice. And if you've been following the past videos, I've shared with you, and as Dr. Robert Glover shares, whenever we try to be too nice, it ends up building up resentment. We don't get the results that we want out of life. We try to be really nice to women, but it doesn't come across as very attractive. And we're going to dive into a little bit of that. Okay. So we're starting to see the symptoms of a nice guy whenever it comes to masculinity. A common thing you hear from nice guys is they say they want to be the exact opposite of their fathers. I don't want to be anything like my dad. And we're going to dive into the daddy issues towards the middle and end of this video. We see that a lot. So the question is, how did it get this way? How do men start to become detached from themselves and masculinity? How do we get to this point? Now, whenever we talk about, women, it seems, it's cool to be connected to that feminine energy. Hang out with your ladies, feminine empowerment. But whenever we talk about masculinity, the masculine empowerment, it gets a little wonky. Men are lost. The boys are lost. How did we get to this point? So, and Dr. Robert Glover shares this in his book. I think this is some really interesting stuff. I think this is some really, 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 really interesting, powerful stuff, okay? Why is it that whenever we talk about single moms, we're like, yeah, single moms, support them, help them. But we don't talk as much about the single dads. We don't talk as much about it. It doesn't get the headlines like the other ones do, okay? If you hear my cat meowing in the back, she's acting dumb. So, she wants me to put her on a table, but I'm not doing it. So, how do we get this way? How do we get detached? Why is it that guys are starting to feel like masculinity is bad and men are bad and women sometimes feel this way as well? So here's how it happened, all right? We transitioned from agriculture to industry. So back in the day, people have farms. It was like 96% of the population was actually working on a farm, okay? They had farms. Most of people's work and life was agriculture. And here's the thing about this. Whenever they did that, the kids, the boys, the young girls, their fathers were at home because they were working on the field. So what they would do is they would go out and they work with their pops. And that's whenever you learn what it means to be a man. That's whenever people learn hard work, discipline. That's toughness, how to joke around and fool around while on the job. Okay? Kids got a lot of lessons from their father. Learned a lot of lessons from their father during this time period. And then, because the father would be at the house after they get the work done, they go into the home. My cat's really starting to get on my nerves, but it's okay. So, now part two is, what happens is the work starts to move from the farm into industry. We start getting into industries. And we also start getting into factories, okay? So the fathers are forced to move away from the house, and the fathers are forced to move away from the house to work, okay? So instead of, now what happens is fathers are spending all their time, their work hours in the workplace, in factories instead of at the home. So now these kids, whenever they used to learn what it was like to be a man from the daddy because their daddy was close, now these kids don't start to get that information because their dads are working in factories all day. So now they're left at home with mama. So now it's mama's job to teach them what it means to be a man and how men behave and how men work and what it means with masculinity. So we get that. Now let's get into the school system, okay? So at work, or at home, kids aren't with their fathers because their fathers are out working. And the kids can't go work in the factories with their fathers, especially once we get into child labor laws. So now we get into school. So kids begin to get more indoctrinated into school. More kids are going to school. And the thing about school is for every one male teacher, there's 20 female teachers. For every one male teacher, there's 20 female teachers. Okay, so kids spend all their day in school with women, and I'm not complaining about this. This isn't necessarily a bad thing per se, but kids spend their most energetic hours in school with their female teachers, and the female teachers are supposed to teach them what it means to be a man. And on top of this, once they go home, because daddy has to work, I also forgot to mention that during this time, Factories weren't everywhere, so a lot of times men would have to leave their homes for long periods of time to stack up the money and then bring it back to the family. So then they go home and daddy ain't there because daddy's working in the factory. So we can start to see how kids are starting to be detached from men. Now this is just how it all starts, okay? And I don't want to get into all the nuts and bolts of it because then we get into, once again, like I said, minimal time with dads. We get into the rise of feminism, which feminism's a good thing. There's a good thing about feminism. Equal opportunity. Don't, avoid somebody based off their gender, their sex, all right, or their race. We don't want that. All right, but there's a bad part of feminism that kind of crept in. Here's the bad part. Here's the radical aspect of feminism. It's whenever we teach women that they need to be independent of men, but we teach men that they need to be loving and caring of women, okay? It's a slight contradiction. Women don't need to do anything with men. They need to avoid men, be able to get all their shit done, okay? But men need to be loving and caring of women. They need to take care of the women, okay? Women shouldn't have to do anything with men, but men should have to do stuff for and with women. That's the radical aspect. And it isn't until, I'd honestly say about now, that the radical aspects of feminism are getting checked. Okay, so we get that. So now boys are in school, a lot of women. Then they go home. Daddy ain't home, so now they're being raised by their mom. Okay, so we get that. And then we also get the rise, once we get into the 60s, 70s, the rise of the single-parent household. And we're not going to get into all that as well because that's not the purpose of this video, but we get the rise of single-parent households. So now there's another reason why daddies are separated. And I would also argue with the rise of single-parent household, you get moms who are more resentful towards their kids' fathers, in which case you get single moms saying your daddy's a piece of trash, men suck, blah, blah, blah. And these kids who daddies ain't around, they're like, yeah, men suck because that's what my mom has been telling me, okay? So we get that. And if you can start to get the gist, all this added up, and a couple other things that I just don't really have the time to dive into, okay? You start to see how men, young boys, young girls, and women start to be detached from men and masculinity. They're separated, okay? And because of this separation, we start to get some confusion on what it means to be a man, how men should actually behave. And we get a lot of women telling young boys and men what it means to be a man and how they should behave as men. So this is how that confusion starts. And this is also how we get this, like, all these sons out here doing it for mama, grinding for mama. I'm out here hustling for mama. I'm out here trying to provide for mama, okay? Out here trying to take care of my mamas, all right? But we don't hear a lot of that about taking care of our pops, taking care of our daddies, looking out for our homies, okay? This is how we start to get that separation. Now, what does that create? It creates a huge wave of nice guys. Men are detached from their fathers, what it means to be a man. They're around a lot of feminine energy. And they get a lot of that feminine energy telling them what it means to be a man, so they adopt this nice guy mentality. Okay, and the pains of a nice guy. What you're doing is you're struggling with honesty. We talked about this. You're unsatisfied. You're overgiving. You're trying to be loving and overcaring of women, but you ain't getting it back. Common symptoms of a nice guy. Okay? Start to become detached. So, if you're the nice guy, you want to start overcoming nice guy syndrome. You want to reclaim your masculinity. Take your balls back. What can you do? Step one. Step one. And a lot of these steps are referenced and taught in Dr. Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, but I'm going to share a couple with you. And these are some that I've been doing that's been helping me a lot. Overcome nice guy syndrome. Get into my masculinity. You see my energy's a lot different now than it used to be. Help lower my anxiety. Find a soothingness in anxiety. Soothing anxiety. And masculine energy. Being a leader. Being more dominant. Being more confident. How can we do it? How can men do that? Step one is you need to start building relationships with men. A lot of nice guys, like I said, they feel detached from men. They don't feel like they can talk to men. So what you need to start doing as a nice guy, if you want to start reclaiming your masculinity, is building relationships with men. Okay? Your boy, like I said, there was a time in my life where I started to build more relationships with women, felt more relatable to women. Okay, so what I did and I'm a dancer, so there's a lot of women in that industry, all right? I was doing a lot of theater at the time, went to school for theater performance, okay? There's a lot of women and feminine energy in those industries, okay? So I started spending more time with women. On my downtime, I hung out with my girlfriends more often, okay? My friends, okay? So now what I've started to do, all right, and this is what you can do, is, for example, I got back into jiu-jitsu. Now, women can do jiu-jitsu as well. There's a lot of women who do jiu-jitsu, but at least in my town, there's a lot of guys who do jiu-jitsu, okay? So getting back into jiu-jitsu helped me start to get back into being more tough, get back into, hanging out with my bros, okay? Being around that masculine energy. Not only that, but it's dudes who are disciplined, dudes who have a good head on their shoulders, dudes who are more calm, okay? I've been doing that. I've been, me personally, also, I've even been trying this. Whenever I go to Starbucks, there's a little section where like the older men usually hang out, okay, and the seats are honestly more comfy, okay, but they'll hang out, they'll chill there. So actually sometimes I'll go over and I'll sit in that area and talk to the dudes, talk to the OGs, what chatted up about business, life, just crack it up a little bit. I've been doing that, okay. Been spending more time with my homies. All right, getting more homie time in. I've been even preaching this. Treat your homies, man. A lot of dudes, a lot of nice guys, they ain't scared to blow some money on a girl on a date. They can't wait to buy the drinks. They can't wait to take him out on a fancy dinner. But when's the last time you took your homie out? When's the last time you treated your homie? All right, women always be looking out for their homies. They be having girl days. They be having girl time. They be doing each other's makeup. They be trading clothes. They be doing all this stuff, okay? But men, we don't be doing that enough, I don't believe. Or at least I wasn't. As a nice guy, I was slacking on that. So treat your homie, all right? I've been hanging out with my homies. Sometimes I buy them drinks. You know what I'm saying? If we can get some food, we'll get some food, okay? Whatever. If we're going to chief it up, we'll chief it up. But treat your homies. That will help you build relationships with men. Something that I've been doing is, because it's not all about just what you can get, it's how you can give. How can you start to give to men and give to that masculine community, all right? Me personally, I teach my boys' classes in dance. I've been focusing more on teaching boys' classes. I was telling because I teach at 2 different studios, and I was telling my boys' class in my hometown, I was like, yo, I had an offer to teach in the city right next to us, teach some classes, and it was like for their company team, which is like more women, okay? And I would have got paid a lot more. But what I said is I decided that I took the pay cut so I could focus on teaching my boys class. So I could get in here, work with these young boys. They can be surrounded by a man who's got good energy, who's a leader, who can not only flow and move, but defend himself and encourage his self-development. Okay, be out here and be a good mentor. So I'm making sure that I'm able to give back to the youth, and I do that through teaching dance in my boys' classes. Okay, that's a way that you can do it. How can you get out here and be valuable to the youth and volunteer? Or you don't even have to volunteer. You can get paid a little bit. That's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with that. The more they pay, the more they pay attention to. You want them to use your tips. All right. So that's what you can start doing. And why is this important? Why should men start to build more relationships? One, so you don't have to rely as much on women. If you want to get your balls back, you don't have to rely as much on women. And if all you have is female friends, all you can do is rely on women. But once you build relationships with men, you have more of a support structure for men. Okay? Not only can you provide them value, but you can call upon them if you need to. And to top things off, whenever you hang out with dudes, at least coming from a straight dude, you don't have to worry about navigating that sexual energy. You don't have to worry about dealing with that if you're hanging out with dudes, if you're hanging out with your fellas. Okay? That's going to help you a whole lot. So, step number 2 on how guys can start to reclaim their masculinity and get their balls back. Step number 2 is, and this ain't new coming from my channel. This is not new coming from my channel. Step number 2 is work on your body game. And y'all know I got my 4 pillars to the body game. That's your flow game, your fight game, your freak game, and your feed game. Just did a post on what that means, or you can check out a video. All right, on my 4 pillars, we dive into detail. But that ain't nothing new to my channel. Work on your body game. I'm not even gonna dive into the importance of body game and all that kind of stuff because y'all know what I talk about. That ain't new. You should not be like, oh, Steph is promoting the body game on his channel. Like, that shouldn't be anything new. I've been on that for years. So if you want to reclaim your masculinity, strengthen your body and your mind so you can actually make that shit work out. So step number 3. And this one's important, y'all. This is a big one. This one's huge. This one's so big, I'll probably end up doing separate videos on this. But fellas, if you want to, and I know this from personal experience. This is real shit. This is the stuff that's going to change a man's life. Change a young boy's life. If you want to reclaim your masculinity, you need to reevaluate your relationship with your father. Some real shit. You need to reevaluate your relationship with your father. So here's what I'm talking about. Like I said, a lot of nice guys have daddy issues. Okay, they feel distant from their fathers. Let me tell y'all a story. All right, I grew up single mom, and whenever I say single mom, my single mom didn't have a lot of nice things to say about my dad growing up. So like I said, I grew up single mom. My dad was not around, and justifiably, my mom. I won't get into all that. Okay, but what I'm saying is my father wasn't around, so maybe my mom had a reason to be upset. Okay, but single mom, daddy wasn't around. I remember up until I was a certain age, I only saw my dad at like 5 or 10 times. I could count the number of times I saw my dad on my hand. And I felt very distant from my father for a long time, even resentful. And, there was a point in my life where I actually stopped talking to my dad. My dad and I had a conversation. I was 18 years old. And I said, I'm 18 now, so I'm not going to talk to my dad. We got in an argument. And I was like, fuck you, Dad. And I stopped talking to him for a whole year, maybe a little bit longer. Okay, and then we actually ran into each other at an event by accident and, started talking again. Okay. And then I was like communicating with my dad, but, there was a time, like I'm talking total forgiveness. There was still, and I would say I'm not resentful towards my dad for him being absent and stuff like that, but I would say that, but deep down there was still a little bit of resentment. Okay, and I watched a video by Jesse Lee Peterson, and I don't agree with everything that guy talks about, but whenever he talks about the importance of individuals forgiving their parents and letting go of all resentment to the T, I think that's some powerful stuff, and I really think he's onto something. So what I did was I decided to embrace total forgiveness from my father. Total forgiveness, all right, letting go of all resentment. And here's what happened, you guys. Okay, your life begins to change. Your life begins to lighten up. I started to improve my relationship to my dad. I even asked myself, and my whole entire life, I never really asked this question. I said, was my dad's dad around? Was my dad's dad in his life? And, I called my dad up one day and I asked him that question. We had the most legit conversation ever. And I don't even know if I would have asked that or even thought about that if I hadn't fully forgiven my father. I don't even know if I'd have been able to have the conversation, okay? But my dad shared with me, and it wasn't until I was 26 that I learned this. I said, Dad, was your dad around? And the man over the phone, my pops over the phone, first time I ever heard my dad cry, he said, listen up, man. He's like, I'm glad you asked that question, Stephen. He said, I was raised by a man. I learned that my father, the guy who my father was raised by, wasn't even his dad. And my dad didn't even find out that guy wasn't his dad until he was like 24 years old. He learned that another guy, a family friend, was actually his real father, all right? And once I learned that, you can't help but sympathize with a guy. You know what I'm saying? You can't help but begin to understand why this man might have some issues with his kids and taking care of his kids and not knowing what it's like to be a father, because the man that he was raised by for 24 years of his life, the guy who he thought was his dad wasn't his actual dad. And whenever he was 24, his real dad chose to tell him the truth. And then it's just like, whoa, you got to reevaluate your whole entire life. Okay, but learning that from my father, okay, learning that story helped me have way more respect for my dad, okay? It helped he and I build our relationship, improve our relationship, and what that does for an individual, it opens you up to a whole new world. It opens you up to a whole new energy. It opens you up to a whole new level of possibilities whenever you can let go of that resentment towards your parents. And here's the thing, a lot of nice guys, we develop that this distance from our fathers for many reasons, okay? But for some reason, you know, dudes were raised by an aggressive father. So they said, because my father was aggressive, I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to be really, 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 really nice, okay? Or maybe the dad was absent, and they're going to think, oh, because my dad was absent, I'm going to make sure that I'm there all the time, 24/7, 365. I give, and I'm going to over-caretake for my woman or my kids because my dad didn't, okay? But then it becomes this nice guy syndrome where we're giving too much, okay? So those are, whether your daddy was aggressive, whether he was absent, maybe he was something else, okay? Find a level of forgiveness. And if it was bad and he's still toxic, I'm not saying forgive him and let him back into your life. You can love and forgive from a distance if you have to, okay? But I'm telling you, step one, if you really truly want to reclaim your masculine energy, okay, you have to, and it almost sounds woo-woo-y and it don't even make sense. But if you want to reclaim that, you have to forgive your father. And once you forgive your father, things will begin to open up. Your life will get lighter and brighter. But you have to do that. All right? And you find a lot of men who have this issue. A lot of men who are angry, bitter, dishonest, out of shape, lost. If you ask them, what's your relationship like with your father? They're going to talk about the distance. They're going to talk about the resentment. Maybe the father was absent. If you ask them how do they feel about men and masculinity, they're probably going to say masculinity is bad. They're going to talk about toxic masculinity. They're going to say stuff like that. So, the first step you can do is forgive your father. Second step you can do is reach out to him, have a conversation, chat. And the third thing you can do is figure out how you're going to build upon that, where you're trying to go with that relationship. And I'm telling you, if y'all do those three things to reclaim your masculinity, one, you start building relationships with men. That's through hanging out, but also providing value to men and mentoring men. If you work on your body game, all right, work on that body, work on that vessel, strengthen that vessel, okay? If you reclaim your relationship with your father, improve upon that relationship, rethink it. You know, a lot of people, like growing up, they'll be like, oh, my dad was absent, my dad worked all the time. My dad worked all the time. So then they build this distance from their father. But as you get older and you get your own family, or you find your own grind, your own purpose, and you end up working a lot, you begin to realize, dang, maybe my dad was absent because, like, maybe the absence wasn't because he didn't like me and he didn't like my mom and he hated us. It was because he just really wanted to provide and take care of us because life is a struggle. And you begin to rethink that relationship and your father's past behaviors. And because you have a different understanding, you can approach your father with a different energy. So, give that a shot. There's three things, and I'm telling you guys, it sounds woo-woo-y. But I'm telling you, if you're lost, if you're a man, you feel out of touch with your masculinity, you're struggling being grounded, your mind's wonky, you want to be tough, but you just can't find the toughness, you don't think it's within you, you don't think it's within your DNA, I'm telling you, it is. I'm telling you, it is. It's there. And all you got to do is just make the decision. All you got to do is make the decision to reclaim your life, to reclaim your masculinity and get your balls back. So you can go out here and do the stuff, conquer the world, dominate your lane, all right, and have a good time doing it. So there you guys have it. We talked about a whole fucking lot today. Talked about a whole lot, but I'm telling you, it's some powerful stuff. And I tried my very best not to ramble. On too much stuff, but this is important. This is important. This information changed my life. It changed my friend's life, and I know it's changed many people's lives, okay? And we just getting started. I don't remember whenever I read that book, probably like 7 months ago maybe. Almost a year ago maybe, all right? So we're just only a year into this. So Let me know what you think about the topic. No more Mr. Nice Guy. What you think about this video? What are your thoughts? These are some touchy subjects, so if you don't want to be public about it and leave it in the comments, that's okay. If you want to be more private about it, shoot me a message. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. That's video 5 out of 5 of the No More Mr. Nice Guy series. I got some ideas to talk about. I think in the next series of videos, we're gonna dive deep into the 4 pillars of body game mastery. All right, I just did a post where you can learn more about them pillars, and I've also done a video on it. So, yeah. Y'all know the drill. It's your boy Stefan. Excuse me. I always fuck it up at the end. Y'all know the drill. It's your man Stefan. It's not a phase. It's a movement. Go out there and get your balls back, fellas.